Hello, hello. Happy Friday.
All right.
We're going to get this thing going. Let me just make sure this is all up and running on our end. Okay, here we go. We are going live on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube right now. Great to see you guys here. Welcome and happy Friday. We'll just give a quick moment to make sure that we are set up everywhere. Let me know, Jeremy, if you see if we are up on LinkedIn and YouTube right now. I see that we are live on Instagram. So I think we're ready to kick this off. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome. We hope you're having a great week so far, and we just want to bring some good energy as we close out the week together. If this is your first time joining our weekly career accelerator, well, welcome. My name's Tiffany. I'm a CEO and career coach. I'm also joined by Jeremy, my COO, and we love coming together not just once, but twice a week, every Wednesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We were having a few technical delays, so thank you for hanging tight a few extra minutes for us today. But our goal of these weekly career accelerators is to really help you do just that, accelerate your career, and make sure that you are attracting more opportunities, getting promoted faster, securing more raises, more income in your life, and of course, mastering a lot of the soft skill strategy that's going to make that happen. A lot of the things that we never really learn how to do effectively, but you're just kind of expected to figure out. And so this is really your time with us to get your questions answered. We want to be there to support you. All questions are welcome. And so we do encourage you to share them throughout the chat and throughout our time here together. As a reminder, we do stream across Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at the same time for these. So please join from the platform that you feel most comfortable asking your questions from. And we should be able to see those coming up on the screen. So, hey, Jeremy, just want to say hi to you. How's it going today?
Hey, it's good to be here.
Yeah,
And
we're
welcome
really
to everyone joining us.
absolutely. We're pretty fired up right now because we just had a pretty epic week. In case you guys were there or not there, we hosted 2 live master classes all around how to get to the next level of your career, debunking a lot of myths and sharing proven how to's to make it happen. And thank you to all of you who did join live. The feedback has been absolutely incredible. And maybe, Jeremy, what we can do is just drop the link to the replay for those
Yeah,
who might
sure.
be wanting to check it out. If you didn't join us live, it is going to be available for a limited time. So consider this our little gift to you going into the weekend. Hopefully, you can take some time to check it out. It's a little over an hour long. And then we had about 45 minutes of open Q&A. So definitely very valuable use of your time. And at such an important moment of the year as hiring decisions are on the rise, advancement decisions are being made, you need to position yourself ahead of the curve and make sure that you're playing the right game and the right way. So we dove into that a lot, and I think you'll really enjoy checking out the replay. Okay, guys, thanks so much for being here. I do think, Jeremy, you mentioned that we got a few questions ahead of time. I'm just going to scroll really quickly here on Instagram. We don't have any live questions yet, so we'll keep it going. Let's take the ones that came through ahead of time. And as a reminder for everyone, please let us know. Drop your questions directly in the chat, and we should be able to see those come through.
Okay, cool. Just a reminder, everyone, don't be shy to share your questions live, but also from our email. So we get a lot of questions in anticipation of our live events. So I'll go through a couple. I love this one from Amir, who's asking, how do I gain leadership experience if I'm not currently in a formal leadership role?
Mm. Yeah, this is a good question. We got a similar one earlier in the week. And I actually really like what you shared, Jeremy. And maybe you want to kind of bring a different lens on that. And then I'll share some insights too.
Yeah, sure. So great question, Amir. I'll answer by giving you a few perspectives, some of which have served me on my way up to the C-suite and others from the CEO position. So on my way up, one of the things that's really important is to know that leadership is not a title, right? So it's something that you showcase through your actions, whether you have that title or not. And some of the ways that you could exhibit leadership is really how you mobilize teams, how you demonstrate a collaborative nature, how you influence and impact projects and the execution of those. And really, what's critical here is the perception of readiness that the higher ups have of you, and that's primarily done through communication. So those are some of the things that are going to facilitate your rise towards towards being perceived as capable of leading a team. Now, from the lens of a CEO or from the C-suite, what you really want to do is showcase how you're able to fundamentally understand what's driving the business forward, and then to communicate that to those around you, your colleagues, your teams, and in such a way that will actually bring about the desired impact. Okay, so even if you don't have the title just yet, showcasing that you're collaborative and that you could have impact with other teams, other departments, other divisions is the best way to do just that before you have your own team. Hopefully that makes sense, Amir. Tiff, anything to
Yeah.
add?
No, those were incredible insights. Yeah, I think the other thing that I'll just reiterate is knowing that leadership isn't tied with a certain title. I mean, you can really
Mhm.
demonstrate leadership without being in an official leadership role. It really comes down to your ability to influence, inspire, mobilize others, as Jeremy was alluding to. And this can happen at any stage of seniority. And when you think about it, if you are looking to step into an official leadership or people management role, at one point, you weren't doing that, right? So there's always going to be that tipping point where you have to leverage the foundation that you have to make that jump. And so, some key examples there could be how you possibly mentor people on your team, how you help onboard new people onto the team, how you maybe lead trainings and influence your department and other departments. There's even what I always like to refer to of how you influence like other departments more directly, because these are people who don't even report into you, and if you can get them to do what you need them to do, that's a pretty solid skill set to highlight. That just imagine if you did have people reporting into you, how much easier that would be, because you're showing that you've got that muscle to be able to influence and mobilize others. So I definitely recommend leaning into that as you're looking to step into a leadership role, and just looking around you of what are these day-to-day types of leadership moments that you've demonstrated that can absolutely transcend into making that next official vertical step. Yeah.
I have a few more things to add. I was thinking about it. So, is that okay if I add a few more things
Yeah,
for
yeah, for
Amir?
sure. We're waiting on some other questions coming through as well from our live participants. So go ahead.
So Amir, just a few other things. Look, I mentioned this a couple days ago on our Wednesday live. Um, Even the best of the best executives don't have the answers to everything, right? What they're capable of doing is, at a very high level, is asking the right questions. And this is where I see a lot of professionals, especially mid-stage professionals, get tripped up, is transitioning from an individual contributor role to a people manager role or to a leadership role is fundamentally about communication and asking the right questions that will drive the business. And it is a skill. So one of the things that you want to practice with your boss, your boss's boss, through informal coffee chats, things like this, is really sharpening your ability to ask questions that have a more deep or a deeper kind of aha or what's in it for the company.
Mm,
Because what ends up happening as you ascend into the C-suite is you have basically a ton of problems or a ton of opportunities that you're facing. You have imperfect information and you have to make a lot of decisions quickly for your organization. And so the skill that really sets amazing executives apart is the ability to ask the right questions, to get to the right insights, the right data to make those decisions. And so, if you're looking to transition into to that role, showing leadership that you ask questions, that you're curious, that you're interested, you're not just interesting. These are very important traits in future leaders that executives are looking for. Basically, you want to see kind of around the corner, ahead of the curve. I think that's one
yeah.
way of kind of thinking about it.
I love that. I love that. And it also helps make their job easier also when you're doing that. You're able to anticipate. You're able to get ahead of things. You're able to make their foresight even more visible for you and shows like, hey, you're thinking a few steps ahead. You're helping build that side of the business as opposed to just being in the day to day so much without coming up for air and realizing, oh, there's a bigger picture here. So those types of things go a long way. I love that question,
Mhm.
Amir. Thanks so much for submitting that ahead of time. Any other questions that we got, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll pull up our list over here. Okay, so um, how can I, again, somewhat related to advancement, senior roles, leadership. So Raj is asking, how can I differentiate myself from peers when aiming for a senior role in my current company?
All right, can you repeat it one more time? I missed the
Yeah,
first part.
so this is from Raj, and Raj is asking, how can I distinguish myself, differentiate myself from my peers when aiming for a senior role in my
Mm.
company?
Yeah, this is a great question, Raj. A few things come to mind in how you can differentiate yourself from your peers when going for a next level role in your organization. One of the first things is to get really clear of what it takes to make the jump from where you are to where you want to go. And I highly recommend actually speaking with people actively in that next level of seniority so that you get a really good understanding of what traits and qualities and strengths and even like competencies that they do in the role that are really pivotal that help them make that jump. And you can use that information to cross reference where you're at, not even just against your peers, but for you of how you fare towards those opportunities and make sure that you're delivering on that because that will obviously help your chances amongst your peers to get there faster because you know what it actually takes. You're speaking with people who have made that jump and now you're using that intel to your advantage. So that's one thing. Another thing I would say is obviously have a very clear understanding from your own manager around what they would need to see you demonstrate to make that shift as well. So you're kind of doing your own research. Now you're kind of also comparing that with direct conversations with your direct manager who's evaluating your readiness for that next step and ensuring that you are also doing what needs to be done. Maybe there's certain things that they need to see you do more of, or maybe they're like, nope, this is it. We definitely see you in line for that next step. This is one of the things we covered in our masterclass this week is this balance of perceived readiness that you feel ready for a next role, but you also need to make sure that the decision makers of that progression see the same thing. And so your peers might not be as proactive in this. They might think, okay, it's just going to happen. But the more proactive effort you take in having these conversations and putting it out there and being explicit in what you want and why you want it and ensuring you don't have gaps to get there, that's going to give you an automatic leg up over your peers in getting there faster, especially if the promotions are limited and it's not everyone can get promoted. It's only going to be one of you and your team. All the more important to do this. I would say the third piece, and probably one of the most important, and again, something we went into in much more depth in our masterclass this week, is building your support system because your boss is only one of many decision makers internally who are influencing if you get promoted or your peers get promoted. And I can tell you a lot of that comes down to the level of one on one relationships you have with those decision makers. So if you've been, let's say, just banking on doing good work or hoping your work will speak for itself, or just kind of keeping your head down and expecting things to fall into place, that promotion can easily go to one of your peers. But if you are differentiating yourself by building, one-on-one meaningful relationships with your boss's boss or your leadership team or support functions that you work with who also have a say of how you are to work with, how you show up, how you perform, right? The more advocates you can build on the inside that will vouch for you in that decision room of, do we promote Raj? Do we promote someone else? And there's all these people saying, yes, 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 he's our guy. Well, guess what? That is a huge differentiator for you because you've got a support system behind you. Or as I like to call your cheer squad, who is also pulling some strings in addition to you advocating and being explicit for yourself as well. So those would be the three things I would definitely say, Raj, are going to set you apart from your peers in securing that next step. Yeah. And of course, if you are looking for any more direct support on this, guys, we would love to help you. We actually shared this earlier with our masterclass this week, but we've opened up our bonus enrollment inside our Career Success Fast Track program, where we really guarantee your results with the level of one-on-one support that we offer. And in addition, with our 100% risk free guarantee to support you until you reach your goals. So if you're like, okay, this is that point of the year where I need to like stop making the same mistakes and repeating the same patterns, and you're ready to take action, I can't emphasize how important of a moment that is to go all in on yourself and make that happen with the right support system behind you. And we actually only have 10 spots left now. We started with like a little over 20, and they've been filling up really quickly in the last 24 hours. So if you do want to even just explore what that looks like, I'll have Jeremy share the link to book a call with our team in the comments over on LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you are joining us from Instagram, please feel free to comment call there, and we'll get you set up on a call with our team so we can get to know you better and really make this your breakthrough year. I can tell you our new members who have joined are very excited already, hitting the ground running and starting to build some great traction. And we'd love that to happen for you as well. So just putting it out there, if you are looking for more of that, do it with you one-on-one support that will guarantee your results, and then also set you up on a very accelerated career track moving forward. We'd love to speak with you. Okay, great. I'm just going to scroll back here. Jeremy, any other thoughts for you on that question?
No, I think that was great.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. So many great faces joining us over here from Instagram. We do have a question from Sassy Sooner Diva. I like that username. I'm going to pull the question up. How to not seem too aged on a resume if you have 10 years of experience? It seems to not always be helpful. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I know, sometimes we worry a little bit about being too experienced in a certain field or ageism or whatever it is. I actually view this in a very different perspective, that your experience is like your biggest differentiator when you're exploring opportunities. And so you don't want to feel like you have to minimize that. And if you feel like for whatever reason your resume isn't getting the right opportunities, or it's not getting you in front of the right people, or it's not leading to interviews, it's probably not because of that reason. It's probably because of something else. It's likely because of the way that you're marketing yourself that's not packaging together your skill set, what you bring in terms of value concretely enough that makes them want to meet you either which way. The years of experience is a huge plus, because I can tell you, having worked with a lot of our own clients who have had degrees and graduate degrees and whatnot, they came to realize, as much as that's a great nice to have, what really matters is the experience. Someone who can do the thing and show that they've done it and do it again with this organization. So if you have over 10 years of experience, we want to flaunt that. We want to use that to your advantage in this process, and simply make sure that you're articulating it very well. That's undeniable for your recruiters, hiring managers, and interviewers. And that you're also breaking down what you've done in that 10 years, right? And I don't know what your resume looks like because I haven't seen it, but if you have multiple roles in that time frame, and that in itself shows like you've really moved up the ladder in that organization or in different positions, that shows that you're a great growth talent, like someone that can push themselves and be challenged and go to the next level quite quickly. So you'd want to highlight that rather than see it as a hindrance. But I do have a feeling if you are having some challenge there, it's probably not just because of years of experience. And I would definitely recommend playing into that rather than seeing it as something that's holding you back. The other thing I will say for you, Sassy Sooner Diva, on this one is don't underestimate the power of networking as well, because I will say with a lot of confidence in what we're seeing in the market today, that's really tough. It's challenging. It's very competitive. Applications alone are not going to do it. You could have the best application. You could be like, on paper, I'm like exactly what they're looking for, and you still get that rejection. And you're like, what the heck? I don't get it. And there could be opportunities to better optimize your marketing materials, being your resume and your LinkedIn. But even beyond that, it's your network. And if you're activating that enough, if you're getting in front of the right people, if you're making yourself visible so that it's just easier for your decision makers in that role to find you and to talk with you and to interview with you. This has been the number one strategy that's worked so well with our own clients who have secured their roles on average within 4 to 8 weeks of working together. We actually had two of these incredible stories join us on our master classes this week, Kellyanne and Muriel, who both respectively landed their new jobs within 4 weeks and within about 6 weeks for the other, leveraging very much networking and getting in front of the right people and with very targeted, well optimized applications. So you just have to make sure you're playing your cards right. But I'm always happy to support you on that if ever you want to get in touch. Again, you could comment, call, and book a session with our team so we can get to know you more and share how we can possibly work together in making you step into that next role with a lot more confidence. Okay. Any thoughts from you, Jeremy, on that you want to add? Because I know you've also been on the receiving end a lot of bringing members
Mhm.
into your team and hiring candidates and building very highly retained teams on top of it. In addition to being, the COO on our team right now. But I'm curious if you have any insights that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of your advice. I guess my perspective, more so from the inside, is to share some analogies, right? So, if you manage a sales team, one of the first things you'll tell your sales team is not to hide behind emails, right? It's to pick up the phone, to build rapport, to build relationships with prospective leads, right? To actually nurture those relationships, not just to shoot off an email with, a pitch. Similarly, what's interesting is that kind of is the same as the applications themselves, right? It's in our own teams when we're in the position managing, incredible talent. We'll say to people, no, you gotta go in person, you gotta develop rapport, you gotta build a relationship with our clients, with our vendors. And yet when we send applications, we do the opposite for whatever reason. So what always worked for me when talent was applying to the companies either that I owned or that I was running was to build a relationship with me or those that were seeking to hire, because fundamentally, the resume is just kind of it's a pulse on your skill set, your experience, things like that.
Yeah.
But people hire people, and what we're trying to assess internally is, do you fit? Are you passionate about what we're doing? Do we see the investment in you as something that will have long-term benefits for your development, for the company's development, and things like that? And so I would just encourage everyone who's listening in to really, double down on networking, double down on building rapport and relationships online, not this transactional ask of, hey, are you looking for to hire? Build a relationship first. It'll go so much further. And this is the same as you would do when managing your sales team or managing your own kind of efforts inside a company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I love that, Jeremy. And I have another question I'm going to throw your way that we got on Instagram because I know you'll probably have some good suggestions here too. But it was from Per Maspera Cadvastra. Any book suggestions to transition from an employee to vendor? And I'm thinking of you, Jeremy, because you work with a lot of vendors, even in your former career path, whether within the Asian markets, European markets. So you've kind of seen it from both sides. And I'm curious if you have any resources, honestly, maybe even just beyond books, but any resources that are coming to mind, whether book or other, to transition from employee to vendor.
I have more questions, frankly, than answers. One clarification, maybe if you could share this on Instagram, is just to be clear, you're currently in an organization and you're looking to transition to a vendor of that same company that currently employs you. That would be like one question I'm curious
Yeah.
to
I mean,
kind of ask.
let's assume that's what it is. Just in the meantime until they respond.
I mean, frankly, I think that's a very hard shift. Likely because, again, I don't know if your current organization has non-solicitation or non-compete rules or things like that.
Yeah.
But it may not be seen as appropriate to move towards the vendor's side and then keep servicing your former employer. Perhaps you'll be assigned to different accounts, or perhaps this is a desired outcome for both your current employer and your vendor. So I'm not, quite sure. Um, I mean, if it is a desired situation for both entities, I think you could play to your strengths and leverage what you know of your company and what they need, and to translate that within the vendor side, right? So, everything from product delivery, service, um, a CSM role, like what does customer success look like on the basis of what you know is important to the client side. I can't think of any books on the spot, so I do apologize. But share some additional insights on the chat. That'd be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know if you have any additional context because it's a question that I think warrants a little bit more on that. What I will say, even in my own career, I've definitely seen it done where we had a former employee who ended up leaving the organization and not right away, but maybe a year later, they ended up coming back as like a freelance contractor with the organization because to Jeremy's point, they knew the need that the company had. This was more like the digital marketing space at the time. And so they had kind of more of like a digital marketing agency they were building out, and they knew the needs of our organization having been from the inside. And so they kind of used that time to build like what that business case would be so that at that moment later down the road, it was actually an easier sell back in because they came in from a contracting standpoint, but they knew exactly what was needed and how to deliver on that. And because they had been with the company earlier and still left on very good terms, they got a little bit more buy in. So, of course, if you're looking to leave your employer and make this move, please make sure you're maintaining good relationships intact, especially if you're looking to work with them in a different capacity of vendor. Of course, if you're looking to not have anything to do with your current company anymore and just go the vendor route and make this entire shift, yes, I think there's likely books out there that will support you. That's not necessarily where our focus is. So we don't want to give you a resource that we wouldn't have done our own due diligence on. What I will say is speak to people who are doing that vendor work right now, because that is the best kind of learning. You want to speak with real people doing the real thing that you're thinking to do, and that may have also made that transition at one point from internal corporate employee to going the vendor route and what that looked like. Learn from lived experience. It's like the best guidance I can share rather than a book where you'll probably have a lot of questions of like, well, how does that actually apply to me? How do I interpret that? What does that look like in my specific situation? Whereas when you speak with people who have literally done the thing, then you're able to have a much more relevant game plan moving forward. So I hope that helps you, since I don't see any additional context that you shared here. Okay. These are some good questions coming through so far. Definitely, guys, if you're joining us here live for the first time, welcome. Again, we are hosting our weekly Career Accelerator. We host this 2 times every week on Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to take your questions live, make sure that we are supporting you in where you're at in your career, whether to land new opportunities faster, get ahead in terms of promotions faster, make more money, and then also really dive into a lot of those situations that we find ourselves in, whether it's some of the conflict resolution or dealing with some toxicity at work or wanting to improve your communication or how to have certain conversations with your boss or teams and whatnot. We don't want to leave any stone unturned here, so please don't be shy in sharing your questions. We're happy to take them live and make sure you've got some good actionable steps to go off of. Okay, I think we got another one here from Instagram, Jeremy, from
Mhm.
CJS. Best way to try and get your shifts changed. Currently working Wednesday to Sunday weekends. Okay, so kind of more in terms of work shifts. Well, the most important thing is to make your ask, but you also want to be clear of the benefit of that shift change. Because if you're looking to change your shifts, it will likely lead to a gap in the shifts you're currently handling. And so you need to understand what that trade off is. And if you have a game plan that can help almost fill in that gap before you go ahead and make that shift yourself. So if I were you, CJS, on this one, I would maybe come ready with, okay, these are the hours I want to move to or the days of the week I want to move to. Here's why, and this is why it's important for me. I understand that this might leave, this day and this day unmanned for the foreseeable future. my recommendation would be doing XYZ in terms of transition plan until we could possibly shift maybe some of the other schedules to accommodate those gaps. And I'd really like your support on this because moving in this direction will help me to be, I don't know, more productive or more focused or better in line with some personal life changes that I need to better accommodate, whatever that might look like. But you have to be very clear about what that narrative is, because otherwise it can be a very easy no when they're like, nope, we just need you to stay in your current hours and that's it. So try to put yourself in the shoes of your manager or supervisor because they don't want to just be met with a problem. You always have to come with the solution. So come with the solution of changing, or come with the opportunity, I'll put it this way, of changing your hours, but also come with the solution of how you're going to fill in what you're walking away from. And that'll lead to a much more constructive conversation with your boss. Yeah. Okay. Jeremy, did we get any other questions also ahead of time? I think we did, eh?
Yeah, we did. We got one from on interview preparation from May. What's the best way to prepare for interviews for executive roles?
I love that. Okay, Jeremy, I'm going to throw it to you to start that one. I know you've also been in many executive roles yourself, and you've also worked with C-level teams with publicly traded companies as well as myself. So let's start with you, and I'm going to build on it.
Okay, cool. So, hey, May, great question. I'm sure Tiffany will have tons of insights there. Just a few things. This is really the magic of our team is that, for example, myself, Tiffany, we don't come from HR or recruitment backgrounds. We lived in industry. We sat at those tables or in those rooms, in those meetings. And so a lot of the things that we share are insights into how decisions are being made at the highest levels, right? So just that little note. So, May, a few things. There are some questions that I'm sure we would have for you. What stage of the interview are you at? Where are you coming from in this process, and so on. But at a high level, when you're trying to break into executive roles, I think there are a few key things that are going to come up. One is your ability to lead and to build future leaders. So, one of the things that a lot of folks are going to be looking at is what is this person's ability to inspire, to mobilize their teams, to build teams if there's a problem that needs to be solved, and how is this person going to go about that. The second is you definitely want to highlight your wins insofar as impact that you've had in the past that drove business results. So executive, especially at the executive level, again, is it a publicly traded company or not? There's a lot higher level questions that are being asked. For example, you'll want to be, if you're applying for a publicly traded company, you definitely want to be up to speed on the latest financials, quarterly, annually, both for the company you're applying to and maybe one or two other comparable companies, so that you have a landscape of what the industry is going through. You fundamentally have to understand the business model, the P&Ls, things like that. Everything that you're going to be answering has to tie into the business. So
Mm,
what you've achieved, and Tiffany could kind of walk you through a little bit how we do that, but the what you did, how you did it, tying it back to past and what you're going to deliver for them, that's super, super important. And depending on which stage of interviewing you're at, you may likely want to proactively prepare some recommendations for your
mm,
first 30, 60,
yeah,
90 days. With humility, you don't know what you don't know. So you already may not know what's been tried, what's been tested, what has failed, what resources, budgets, and other things have already been assigned to the position you're applying for. So try to ask questions throughout all of the stages you're interviewing at, such that you could incorporate those things in your answers. And then I highly recommend that you prepare a recommendation plan, sheet, deck, whatever, with some things that you've done in the past
yeah,
and how it'll impact the organization you're applying for. And you could pick up on these things in past earnings calls. So if it's a
yeah.
publicly traded company, read through earnings calls, see what some of the problems are or opportunities, and try to speak to those when you're pitching. This is
Mhm.
really, really powerful. Try to network with people at that company if you haven't already. Um, Those are off the top of the head. Those are some things that I would recommend.
Those are some good things. I hope that helps, May. Honestly, I echo everything that Jeremy just shared. I would simply add, if anything, building even more of those advocates as well in kind of learning from maybe executives that you've worked with, but also, if there's other people in the organization that you could get some intel from, like, what is it like working for these types of leaders? What are the hot topics that are really top of mind for them right now? What are some conversations that might be happening internally that I can also maybe speak to in my interviews? Like any kind of additional information you could get a little creative on finding will only help, right? Because you want to do everything that Jeremy just shared and really position yourself to be that solution to what they're looking for and be seen as a talent worth investing in, not just at the level you're coming in, but like future growth potential as well. So I think the more sensitive you are to maybe where their headspace is at, all the better. And by the way, that's a little hack as well when you're working in an organization and speaking with executives and working with your executive team. Try to be very in tune with what those hot topics are at any one time. Pardon. As
Those are some good tips.
I'm choking on my own saliva. So you want to be able to identify what those hot topics are and show a good level of consciousness to that, as opposed to just going into meetings and not being very in tune with what the climate is, right? If you go in thinking one particular message and you're a little bit naive of like the conversation, if there's been a big recent like decision made or there's some important challenges that are being handled and you're like, I'm here to present this, and it's just very disconnected, that can actually work against you. So very similar in interviews with executives, you just need to try to get on that same playing field as quickly as possible so that they understand your level of seriousness of coming into the role, and also, to Jeremy's point, how you can really bring a lot of that value.
And do
Okay.
your and just to add, you really need to do your research again at the
Yeah.
executive level. Everyone that you're meeting, you should know what their role is, what their career trajectory is and was. Did they work in other divisions, other geographies for the same company? You really need to sharpen all of that kind of visibility before walking into those meetings. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, amazing. We got another question here as well from Link, actually
You
YouTube.
too.
So I'm
Mhm.
going to pull that up right here from Santanella. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Tiffany, Jeremy. I plan to take maternity leave in my current role, but expect to get a job offer soon. Should I bring up after verbal or written offer how to negotiate a late start? Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure where you're based, Santanella. I don't know if you could let me know right now in the comments with where you're joining us from, because I'd love to get a sense of the length of maternity leave that we're talking about here, because that will kind of determine a little bit how we handle that. Because if you're planning to take a maternity leave in your current role, I don't know if you're due like tomorrow or if this is like 5, 6 months out from now. But obviously, if it's a little further out, you don't necessarily need to share that immediately if you're about to accept another offer. If you're going to be in that role for at least several months. If you're about to go on maternity leave in like a month or a month and a half, yes, you're going to have to share that with them. That would be a little bit misleading, but you want to wait a little bit closer to the offer stage. To your point, I think at this point, whether it's a verbal offer or written offer, it doesn't really matter in terms of the distinction, because at one point, if you say it at a verbal offer and then they choose not to give you the written offer, or they give you the written offer and then they choose to make a different direction, it's going to be kind of net the same thing. At one point, we do hope that the organization will be one that understands your reality and that it's still a role that you're really excited about. And if it's just a matter of negotiating a different start date to work around your maternity leave, and if you are in a location where a maternity leave is shorter versus longer, then that gives you more flexibility in that negotiation, right? If, for example, you're thinking to take a 3 or 4 month mat leave and there's some flexibility of when you start this, maybe you start the role in January and it gives you that chance to like have that time at home with your baby and that's rightful time that you deserve to have, that's something that could come up possibly around getting the offer itself, whether it's verbal or written. I wouldn't extend it beyond that type of time just because of semantics. That's at the point where you would want to be upfront and let them know that you're really excited about the opportunity. You also want to be transparent that you are expecting a baby, and that will likely be affecting timing as of this point. And so it's really up to you, Santinella, if you want to start in the role and then you take your mat leave and then you come back, or if it's very imminent right now that you actually just delay the start date and see if that's something that they're open to. Now, obviously, if they give you the offer and then they rescind the offer, that is discrimination, and they are not actually allowed to do that and retract an offer just because of your news that you're going to be delivering a baby. And so this is where it's just a little bit of that fine dance of delivering that news at the right time, but in a way that gives you a little bit more of a backing of how to handle it. But I don't know if you could give me a little bit more context. I don't see your follow up here of if you're due soon or not so soon. But you think of it this way, if the role is a very immediate need and they need someone tomorrow, this could impact their decision more so, not anything to do with the maternity leave, but just like they really need someone to hit the ground running now. And that's something that's really instrumental for the role. And that might just be where the cards fall. The other thing, Santinella, just as a thought, because you mentioned that you're planning to take a maternity leave in your current role, just putting it out there that maybe you want to see this through in your current role and then give yourself that time to just evaluate options and then decide when you come back if you want to go back to your current organization or make a move. That will likely be the safer bet for you. That gives you more of that flexibility. But of course, you can always see this new opportunity through and just see if they're open to start date. But don't get discouraged if they're not as open to that, if they really need someone to start immediately for the needs of the role. So hopefully that gives you a few different options you can work from. Yeah. For what it's worth, Santinella, we've helped a lot of our clients as well navigate maternity leaves in a way that doesn't slow down their growth. We've helped quite a few of our clients make a really good path for promotion and land their promotion before leaving on their maternity leave. We've had ones build the business case upon return from their maternity leave. So something I'm also very familiar with, having gone through that myself, and would love to support you on that. So if ever you are interested in more of that one-on-one guidance to make sure that this works really well in your favor, please feel free to book a call with our team. You can go ahead and book that even directly from my website at www.tiffanyhuman.com. If you guys are joining us over on Instagram, you could just comment call and I'll send you the link directly. And I do believe Jeremy's put the link over on our LinkedIn chat there as well. Okay. I think I have one other question here, Jeremy, coming from Instagram, and then we'll probably wrap up. So it was from Sabrina, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Sabrina, good to see you here. So your question was, should you still move forward in an interview, although you know your other, hang on a second. It says, should you still move forward in an interview, although you know your other candidate has been in place as interim for 2 years and more as a manager within that team? So I think if I gather what you're saying, well, Sabrina, you're asking, should you kind of bother moving forward in an interview if the other candidate feels like they have a leg up over you because they've been there already and kind of knows the inner working? I will give you a different perspective to consider on that. If they've selected you to interview and you're already part of the process, well, clearly they believe that there could be a better candidate than the one that's already in that interim seat. Right. And so this is your opportunity to prove that to them. We've helped a lot of our clients come out of the underdog seat and actually land the role versus the person that was more qualified on paper. So I see this as game on. Let's do this thing. And if it's a role that you're really excited about, why would you want to rule yourself out of that just because someone's there, right? Maybe they have certain strengths. That's great, but you have your own strengths. You have your own competencies and wins that you're bringing into the role. And maybe that's exactly the fresh energy they want. So, moral of my story here, never assume what their decision-making criteria is in a way that will rule you out of going for the opportunity. They might actually weigh a lot more heavily on the criteria that would favor your candidacy than the other person's candidacy. So I hope that gives you a little bit of that added boost of encouragement to see this through if it is an opportunity you're very excited about. All right. Amazing. Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our session today. I think Sabrina was just asking, couldn't that be more procedural? I mean, it could be, but at the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to do that due diligence anyways. You could even ask around and say, you know what, like I'm really interested in proceeding in this interview process. I do know that so and so is also going forward and they've been in the role. I just kind of want to get a sense of, my chances with this because it is one I'm going to be preparing for heavily. And I do believe I can do that role really confidently. And if there's any other insights that I should have going into this to solidify my candidacy for this, I'd love any additional feedback that can help me on that, right? And like that, you're
Mhm.
just playing your cards more strategically. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining today and being here. Happy Friday once again. I know Jeremy had already shared the replay to our masterclass that we hosted earlier this week. So if you haven't had a chance to be there, please definitely take a moment to check it out over the weekend. Your future self will thank you. It was a very valuable session that our members that joined there live really appreciated as well. And we will be back here next week, Wednesday and Friday with my team to take on your questions as well. And if you are looking for more one on one Do It With You support, please do reach out, book your call with our team. As I mentioned, we are actually in bonus enrollment right now for my Career Success Fast Track program, which is the leading career accelerator all in one. Because we don't just look at one level of your career, we really see through all the different levels to continue to accelerate your growth and income and opportunity. And we would love to make that happen for you this year as well. So please reach out. Spots are going really fast, and we do close that enrollment on Monday. And we would love to speak with you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you have a great weekend, and we will speak again really soon. Bye. Thanks again,
Hi,
Jeremy.
everyone. Bye.